So you want your rogue to destroy mobs like this. You want to absolutely explode and melt down mobs like that. Or you want to hop down in some nightmare dungeons and just absolutely clear the room like that. Now, here is the blades only Twisted Blades rogue. Now, we're not using any traps. We're not using the bows, nothing. It's strictly the blades, the swords, the daggers, and throwing out those throwing knives or whatever. We're going to jump right into the skill tree here and show you exactly how I got this built and how you can put it together yourself. Now, there's going to be further gameplay at the end to see exactly how you blow that up. And I'm going to try to go quick through here while also explaining it. I don't want it to be a 47-minute video. Now, a lot of people for Twisted Blades, they go puncture, they go enhanced puncture, and then over to fundamental puncture, making everything vulnerable. It's just a 1-point wonder. It's really all you need. Once you come down to the core skills, max out twisting blades, go to enhanced twisting blades, come over to advanced twisting blades. Even though this did get a nerf, I mean, I still think it's the best option, better than dazing things, because everything just blows up with one hit. So it's really unnecessary to crowd control any monsters, almost everything, not literally everything, but a lot of stuff blows up in one hit. Here we've got you gain damage reduction here from sturdy. Went ahead and maxed that out, got 12%. Coming over to siphoning strike, it's the closest thing to life leech here there is on the rogue in D4. So 3% of your max life whenever you critically strike a close enemy. So that's how you're going to be getting your life leech or gaining life back. Coming down to your agility skills. Now, I got 1 point into Shadow Step, up over to Enhanced Shadow Step. And then we've got Disciplined Shadow Step, reduces the cooldown by 3 seconds whenever you damage an enemy that you haven't hit in the last 4 seconds. You almost never hit the same enemy twice, especially within 4 seconds, because you use this as a movement from quickly moving from one side of the screen to the other. So it's literally almost never happens. So you perpetually there, have a 6-second cooldown because of that. Coming down to dash here, I got actually the max into dash. This is one where you probably just put 1 point into it and use it for its movement until I got like the most amount of skill points that I could get. And I decided to go ahead and fill this up to reduce the cooldown further, so you can get as many of the quick movement skills as you need when needed. You can also, I will note, get both Shadow Step and dash skills on your gear in different places depending what you want to use. So you could go ahead and put no point into this and use them strictly for the mobility while getting like the 1.2 or to the skill or whatever you end up getting on your gear. Coming over to weapon mastery, pretty much every build that uses any weapons here is going to use weapon mastery. It is just a great one to go ahead and put the 3 points into. Now coming down here for a little bit of survivability, I just went ahead and 1 point into Dark Shroud. It's another one here. You can actually get Dark Shroud on your gear if you would like to. But the way I currently decide to set up my build, Dark Shroud, coming up to Enhanced Dark Shroud, and actually over to Subverting Dark Shroud. Now you gain a 4% increased movement speed for each active Dark Shroud shadow that you have on. So this pretty much, when you leave a pack, you throw up a new Dark Shroud, and then you will have the increased movement speed, closing the gap between one pack and the next, and which I feel like is going to increase the dungeon clear speed. Now coming down to, you want to max out Exploit here. You deal 18% increased damage to healthy and injured enemies. And then go ahead and 3 points into Malice here. You deal 9% increased damage to vulnerable enemies. And you already seen that Puncture makes enemies vulnerable. Well, down here we're making even more enemies vulnerable by having some of the skill points we use down here. And we are using Shadow Imbuement, a very good skill. A bunch of damage, gets everything infected essentially with the shadow. But then as you move up here, we've got Enhanced Shadow Imbuement, increased critical strike chance against injured enemies infected by Shadow Imbue, and then Blended Shadow Imbue. So Shadow Imbue's primary explosion, so when you kill something, it blows up, makes enemies that it hits vulnerable for 2 seconds. A lot of times that explosion is going to kill a monster that has Shadow. It's going to like chain reaction, boom, 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 boom. And then they're all going to pretty much die. But anything that doesn't manage to die, whether it's a stronger monster, an elite or whatever, it's going to be vulnerable for a couple of seconds. So you're going to be dealing even more damage against those monsters if they aren't taken out. On top of that, 1 point into Shadow Crash, and go ahead and 3 points consuming Shadow. This is mandatory with this particular build. Don't do anything else. I couldn't imagine why you'd ever think you would want to, but 30 energy for every monster that dies that has with shadow damage. And that's almost all the monsters that you kill. So you're almost going to be perpetually having a ton of energy. Precision Imbuement here. Go ahead and 3 into that. Imbuement skills gain 9% increased critical strike chance. Now we're coming down to the ultimates, and I don't use any of these ultimates. It's really unnecessary, to be perfectly honest. I decided to go with the Dark Shroud. to get more movement speed and survivability, essentially, because you don't need any more damage anywhere. I did go ahead and max out innervation, so up to a 30% chance to gain more energy back, so keeping your energy up while you're blasting away with those twisted blades. And we've got adrenaline rush. While moving, you gain 5% increased energy regeneration. So if you do ever have a time when your energy is a little bit low, you're going to be getting a little bit more energy regeneration between packs if you need it. But the main point is 1 point of that to get down to haste here. While at or above 50% energy, you gain 15% increased movement speed. A lot of times between packs, you know, your energy is going to be replenishing super quick, be above 50. So you're going to be getting faster between packs, clearing dungeons faster than that. If at any time your energy does get low, 50% increased attack speed when your energy is below 50%. So you can throw out your basic skill and use the generator to get more. If you did shift around any points, you could easily get more into Alchemist's Fortune up here and Second Wind. Different things, kind of increasing your lucky hit chance is what this stuff is up. And then you could go ahead and get more points into Adrenaline Rush and a few other the passives around if you would like to. But this, I really do recommend. This is a very fun build the way this is set up and rocking this out. So I decided to go with momentum here for, you know, you build up the stacks of momentum, get increased damage reduction, you get energy regeneration and movement speed. Every time you use Shadow Step, you hit a monster in the back, 100% of the time guaranteed. So that's kind of an easy way that you're going to get these stacks of momentum. You don't really daze, stun, or freeze anything like ever, but there's not really a ton of great options down here for this particular build. You could go with close quarters because the puncture is a marksman and the cutthroat is twisted blades. So you're going to have both of those happening. You get 10% increased attack speed bonus for 8 seconds. So you're going to be doing both of those. So you're going to be getting 20% increased attack speed and the 20% increased damage against crowd control enemies. But you don't really crowd control a ton of stuff. So that doesn't necessarily help you out a ton. But maybe with a little bit different tweaks or something that you want to do, you could go justify going that, but I decided not to. Now, when we go ahead and take a look at the gear over here, this stuff, some of these aspects are more important than others, and I'll try to point that out to you, and I'll point out what on the gear I was looking for and why I picked it, what you want. Here, I prefer always go with the crossbow. It has increased percent vulnerable damage, and you're making everything vulnerable all the time. The actual bows have damage to distant enemies, and you're not really going to be damaging distance enemies, right? You'd rather get the damage to vulnerable enemies. On top of that, this one, you obviously want whatever your main stat is for any build. So this one's Dex, more vulnerable damage, damage to injured enemies, and critical strike damage with your imbue skill. Now, the twisted blades orbits around you. I believe it's called Blade Dancer. Absolutely crucial to put on your two-handed weapon. It will really, really improve your twisted blades build, getting this on your two-handed weapon. On top of that, go ahead and stick emeralds in any and all of your weapons down here. You can see they're in all the weapons. 10.5% critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. Moving up to the boots, I love getting the Shadow Step as an additional charge. I don't know exactly what this one was called again, but look for this, get this on your boots. This particular boots, it only has the 3 aspects here, but it also does have 2 max evade charges. So it gives me more mobility. It gives me extra dash charge ranks, which will reduce the cooldown on that. It gives me an extra Shadow Step charge. It's got my main stat. It's got energy cost reduction. I would look for a little bit of an upgrade here because it's only sacred. It's one of those spots that I haven't quite capped out yet, but I got a good option right here, and that aspect is awesome. I don't even really care about the other stuff down at the bottom that increases Shadow Step by 3% for 2 seconds up to 15. It's not really that important because you don't really kill monsters with that. It's more for the movement. Looking at the pants, we've got you gain the 0.4% increased armor for 4 seconds up to 40. That's the aspect. Very great. Gonna absolute tons of time help out survivability, and you're dealing mega buku damage. So this is going to be up a ton and like all the time. Obviously, max life, dex, total armor, damage reduction from close enemies, all great stuff. As you move into the armor, go ahead and stick rubies in everything that you can for max life, and that's what I went ahead and did. Now move up to the gloves. Twisted blade ranks is going to be crucial to get on your gloves. This one, and at this point I'm ancestral, so I got 4 to twisted blade ranks. Lucky hit chance is always great. Critical strike chance, attack speed. These are very, 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 very good gloves. You could get a little bit of an upgrade on some of the rolls and a little bit more armor, I suppose, a little bit more item power, but this is essentially exactly what you're looking for. Your imbuement skills, effectiveness, have 40% increased potency against vulnerable enemies. And remember, everything's always vulnerable. Looking up at the armor, I should socket this and get some rubies in it. I'm going to take care of that in no time here. Just been lazy, but get some rubies in here. But this armor, going to be controversial. I think it's hilarious, and it's almost shocking the amount of damage that this really puts out. Think of how much you get hit by monsters, whether there's a random bow person shooting you, whether you're dashing through your twisted blades and something's hitting you. This really does put out a ton of damage. On top of that, there is an aspect that says when thorns damage gets put out like 40% of the time, it does an area of effect. You could throw that on somewhere, which I'm really contemplating getting on here pretty soon. But it's almost shocking the amount of times that this thorn damage kills stuff. It really is crazy. Coming up on the helmet up here, we've got this one's sacred. I really would like to get an upgrade at some point, but some of the stuff on here is really good. I love the life after kill. Love the life after kill, because you're killing so much stuff. If you ever do lose life, you're boom, killing 15 monsters. You're getting, restoring half of your life instantly in one shot. It's absolutely amazing. Obviously, all stats, max life. I use Shadow Imbue, all good stuff to get on there. The aspect is kind of mid, we'll call it. It's not exactly what I'm looking for on this particular one, but I don't want to redo it just yet, because I'm looking for an ancestral upgrade here. But becoming injured while crowd controlled grants you unstoppable for 4 seconds. They really can save your life, so it's not a bad one to get. But I'm more of a glass cannon kind of person, so I'm going to look for one to throw on there in the near future to increase damage. But every once in a while, you got to get survivability, right? Looking over at the amulet here, once again, it's just sacred. I want to upgrade to ancestral real soon, but energy cost reduction, total armor, damage reduction in close enemies, movement speed, all great stuff to get on your amulet. Obviously, the highest all res that you can get, I guess, is good. Right now, I know resistances aren't super important in D4 because they didn't do them quite right the way they want to. They're going to change them in the future, I guess. But getting more resistance is better than just not having it, I suppose. But skills deal 27% increased damage based on your primary resource. Now, this one got turned off for a short time, but it got turned back on after they kind of fixed the way it was having unintended consequences with the barbarian. So that's great. You want to get that on somewhere. And you notice in the jewelry, I stick in these extra skulls. They give you armor to help out survivability, mainly just because resistances right now aren't really showing to have any beneficial effect. Right here, ring with a ton of good stuff. Once again, max life, vulnerable damage, critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, pretty much the exact stuff you want to get. This is just sacred though, so I could get ancestral eventually at some point, upgrade this for even better rolls and stuff like that. Killing a vulnerable enemy grants you 62% increased regeneration of energy for 4 seconds. Well, you're killing everything that is vulnerable, so this is going to be essentially perpetual energy regeneration increase. So that's essentially your new baseline. Coming on to the next ring here, once again, critical strike, imbue skill, max life, critical strike chance. This is another great one. Gain 13 of your primary resource for every 25% of your life you heal back. Remember, we're healing life back here. We get life after kill. We have that siphoning strike that kind of like leeches back life essentially on critical hit chances. You're going to be drinking potions, right, from time to time. So that's going to be regaining some of your resources. Well, for every 25% of your life that you heal back. So that's way more than you really realize. And it just kind of happens passively without you ever even thinking about it. You just look down and, oh, my energy's fine. That's good, good, good. So here, once again, here we got a dagger. All stats, overpowered, close enemies, dex. Not all the perfect stuff I would want, but I'm kind of looking on the weapons to get the highest damage per second. Kind of more so than the other stuff that rolls on it. For now, I would like to get upgrades, like perfect upgrades with all the best stuff, but this is the best I've found until this point. The aspect here, unlucky hit, making enemy vulnerable, has up to a 40% chance to give you a 3% increase critical strike chance. This is some like kind of convoluted Diablo type math here, but just know having this on essentially gives you a better chance of getting critical strike. So getting more critical strikes, obviously it's going to help out your damage for sure. Coming over on the sword right here, this one's got pretty much I have this one on just because it's the highest DPS one that I had found up to this point. And I just haven't been getting good luck, to be perfectly honest, with weapons. So, but the aspect I am printed on here, basic skills gain 29% increase attack speed. So if you ever have a time when you have to use a ton of your basic skill to regenerate your resource, it's going to be attacking even faster, regenerating even faster. Also, putting out increased damage. As for the specialization on this build, I go with Inner Sight 24/7, 365. You could technically, I suppose, min-max by constantly swapping back and forth. I ain't really about that life. I just stick with inner sight all the time and call it a day. Now, we're going to take a quick look at the Paragon board. They can be kind of complicated to explain, and, you know, it's kind of up to you the way you want to go ahead and do it. This is the way I'd kind of recommend for the first board for pretty much anybody, though. Come across to the right side up through this prime rare node, then come up to socket in this glyph socket. This one I put diminish in, then come up the left side through the skillful node and off the top. Yeah, if you have the node exploit, you're going to want to get that in one of these glyph sockets kind of as soon as you can, because it's a really good one. Somehow, I don't know how, but I have not found it yet. As soon as I do, and hopefully one day soon here I get my hands on it, but somehow I don't have this exploit glyph yet. But you're going to want to find a good spot for that. Pretty much what you want to know is you're going to want to follow the paths where you can get your main stat, which on this is Dex. So you see this way I went up to Dex, came up to this exploit rare node, and I was talking about an exploit glyph, not a rare node. This is a little bit different, but 20% vulnerable damage and damage to injured enemies. So it gets the bonus from having the certain amount of stats that you need. I am eventually going to get around to this right here. It's kind of the next place that I'm working on getting around to is this legendary node right here, exploit weakness. Whenever you deal damage to vulnerable enemies, they take 1% increased damage for the next 6 seconds. So we're going to want to get around to that kind of as soon as possible after this next part. I went ahead and got the next board, got the socketed glyph and the other legendary node on this particular board before I got around to this one, but you could do it in either order really. So I came across, socketed in closer. Here's a good one to go ahead and put in, because for every 5 decks within this range, your cutthroat skills get 4.5% increased damage. So your cutthroat skill would be your twisted blades. So you're getting even more damage out of that. And eventually this is going to expand, and I'm going to go ahead and get some more of these dexterity nodes in here to really bump that up a little bit more. Came around to the tricks of the trade. So yeah, your twisted blades is a cutthroat. Your other skill is a marksman. And so those are constantly bouncing back and forth. You're using one of these, one of those, one of these, one of those. 25% increased damage on those. Then I hopped over to get this brawler rare node. Get some close damage and some damage reduction to close. Makes sense. Hopefully, eventually, at some point, I get that extra strength to get up to that. Shouldn't be too crazy long before I get up to that strength, to be honest. But then I went ahead and got this board with Eldritch's Bounty. When you attack with an imbue skill, you get 20% resistance and 20% increased damage for that imbuement element for 6 seconds. So right there, you know, just increasing your imbuement damage, essentially getting over to that one. And I am going to get some more of these rare nodes and get another glyph socket when I can get enough. Got to decide whether I want to come up this way or whether I'm going to come up through the middle here. It's kind of a 2 of 1 half dozen the other, because if I want both of these, I can come up and get over here, or I can come like this and then kind of come down. I'll probably come up this side, get all this dex in the middle, get some of these magic nodes in this, and then come up this way to get this socket right here. So there's where I'd recommend going with the Paragon board. I know that's a little bit hard to describe what you choose on the Paragon board, but generally grabbing these boards and putting them in this order is going to work out great for you. Now we'll jump into example gameplay, and I'll try to explain the way that you want to play this. Now you see my cooldowns already going. That's because I put Shadow Imbue and Dark Shroud on before I got to the pack. Then you just hit them with the Twisted Blades. I use dash and dash through. The blades follow you and blow everything up. Now you can see my cooldowns are almost completely gone. Put on both Shadow Imbue and Dark Shroud and get to the next pack. Here we go, and by the time I got to the next pack, it was already all gone. Go ahead and do the same thing. You use your Twisted Blades, they follow you. The Shadow Imbue blows everything up, and boom, I go ahead and put it on before the next pack. I dash through again, the Twisted Blades follow you, blows everything up. And now you're hoping before you get to the next pack that those cooldowns are then once again gone. So here we are on to the next pack, and here I hit them with the same steps. Bang, bang, Twisted Blades follow you, and boom, blows up everything, it's gone. Move on to the next pack. So go ahead, here's just a regular overworld dungeon. So all these monsters are going to be right at my level, but people love farming these to kind of just go quick against the weaker monsters to kind of gain experience faster. So I kind of wanted to show the way these just standard overworld dungeons are. So here we are once again, waiting. Boom, my Shadow Imbue is back on. Dash through. I actually did a double dash to get a little extra distance for those blades to follow through even more monsters. Boom, they blow up the whole pack. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The cooldowns are gone. Slam them back on, and then dash through this pack, and boom, just melts the entire area. And I just go ahead and move on. Kind of the same deal. We got a couple of seconds left on our Shadow Imbue, but you see I got frozen there, and I actually used my Shadow Step. It has that unstoppable, and you can jump right out of danger, like I did right there. Once the cooldown was gone on the Shadow Imbue, I absolutely melted that pack once again. So go ahead and move on here, and here's actually a tier 29 dungeon. These monsters are 6 levels higher than me, so pretty significant. You can see kind of the same exact thing. You get the Shadow Imbue on, you use it, bam, blows up the mob. Oh, when I come across a much higher butcher, this is going to be a problem, huh? Oh, actually, with this build, you can just face tank a 6 level higher butcher, no problem. Kind of funny right there, so it's really good even against single targets. And here is the single target at the end of this nightmare dungeon. Now, this isn't the fastest kill. I got hit with one of these little tornadoes here that makes it so you have to stop fighting, unfortunately. But you can see even on single target damage, it does pretty darn good. You get the inner sight up, and then you hit him with the Shadow Imbue Twisted Blades, and they're done, son. It's over. That's how good it is against packs and against even single targets as well.